Hello and welcome to Tricks of the Astray channel. Today is the 9th of May 2017, and today we have a presidential candidate, or what we would say the president-elect of France. His name happens to be Emmanuel Macron. Now I'm going to show you a quick web page on how he won the French election. And here is Emmanuel Macron right now, as you can see. And first off the bat, I just want you to take a look at that hand, and you can see how small that hand is relative to the face. I just want you to take note of that first of all, before we get into Emmanuel Macron fully. Now, according to Yahoo, and as usual, all media, I usually say this in all the videos that, all media, all forms of media that's being put across to you, it doesn't matter in what form it comes from, whether it's the internet or music, TV, as long as media, it's owned by Vatican, and they use proxies to run this. So let's just read from this web page on Yahoo. It says that it says political newcomer Emmanuel Macron will be France's next president. Posters projected Sunday night, delivering a resounding victory to an unabashedly pro-European former investment bank and strengthening France's place as a central pillar of the European Union. So today I want to break down democracy into a simple I just want to break it down simply so people can understand that the thing that we call democracy is just a way in which the Vatican used to upset kings and queens which were in position to it after the Reformation. And that's what I want you to have a knowledge of today as we get into this particular topic about Emmanuel Macron. So first of all, if it's your first time on our channel, as I usually say, I'd like to welcome you. But before we go further, if it's your first time, I want you to pause this video right here and go look for the primer video on our channel. It's not going to make any sense to you if you watch the videos on our channel without watching the primer video first. It's very, very important that you do. And also, when you're done watching the primer video, I would also advise that you go to a video. You can click on any of the videos. For example, I'm just going to show you. Let's take, for example, a video right here called Real Gender Not Transgender or Transsexual. That's actually on our channel. All right. Let's see if the video will open up quickly. It's opened up. So what happens is, for every video that we make, we have a document that's attached. And I want you guys to please download that document, all right, and study it. The document is like 44 pages long. Even though it's 44 pages long, it would actually take you 30 minutes to go through it, okay? So I guarantee and I promise you with 30 minutes, because it just has a lot of pictures. So all you need to do is go to the YouTube screen as you're seeing right here and click on show more as I'm clicking, and you see a link right there. Click on that link. It will take you to a document. Download the document, study it. It's 44 pages long, but it will take you 30 minutes to go through. I want you to do that before you can continue watching our videos. If you haven't done that, please do so. If you have done so already, then you already know what else to do. You just need to follow us all through. So usually, like I always say on all our channels, on all our videos, we are not against transgenders, all right? We can't judge people who are transgenders, because like I've said before in one of the videos that you can only judge someone that you have authority over. We have no authority over transgenders. So for example, if you go to a law court, right, the judge judges you because he has been set up as an authority over you to judge you. That's why he can pass judgment. So for us, we can't judge anybody because we have no such power over transgenders, all right? What we're merely just trying to expose to you is the fact that there's a lot of deception going on in your world, and the people responsible for it is the Vatican. So like what it means is that we're trying to address this problem from the roots. So because if you see a tree, right, you can't know what type of tree it is until you see the fruits. So the fruits of this tree is actually the transgenders you see. But the problem, the root itself, is the Vatican. So that's what I want you to understand, because the Vatican has set up a machine in place, a system in place, which is given to manufacturing kids, just like you would manufacture any product that you're going to sell. All right. These kids are taken at a tender age before they can make that decision. All right. To say, okay, I don't want to live in a sex or gender that I was born with. I want to live in a different sex and gender. That hoax. All right. But these kids' choices are taken away, and these kids are forced, castrated, or mutilated, as the case may be, and forced to live in a gender and sex that's not the gender that they were born with, technically making these slaves, making these children slaves. All right. So, and using these people to control the perception of your world. That's why you need to watch the primer video to fully understand the statements that I just made. Okay, please do so. So, and that's what I'm saying. So that's what we're trying to expose here. We have no problems against transgenders who are mature in the sense that they've reached the age of adulthood in which they can make decisions on their own and say they want to leave the hoax or fantasy of being a gender other than the gender that they were born with, because it's a hoax. It's a very serious hoax and cosmetic fantasy. It's a medical hoax, because you have to understand that when a child is born at conception, the sex is determined and nothing can change that. So whatever you're doing is just cosmetic. It's just more like a woman putting on makeup. It's not the real woman that you're seeing. It's just a woman with makeup. But in terms of this, it's very, very serious, because people don't understand that you can't change your biology. Your biology is always going to be stamped XY or XX, as the case may be, if you're female. All right. And people don't even understand that the hair, a female's hair on her body and on her head, is different from a male hair, because they contain different types of eulanin. What's the right word for it? I think it's eumelanin structures in it. It's both different for male and female. So that's how much the differences are so far apart, so different. All right. So for example, a female will have a 120-degree arch in her pelvis. That's never going to change. A male is going to have a 90-degree pubic arch or less. That's why a woman can be able to spread her legs and, have sex and bear children, which man can't. A female's pelvis is much more heavier than a male, right? And males have broader shoulders and heavier skulls. Men have 10% more brain matter than females. A female will always have an arch in her back so that she can carry the weight of children. There is no female in this world with a straight back, except the female is 90 years old and walking with a cane, and even that you will still find an arch in her back. So those are some of the skeletal differences that is never going to change. Anything else you change on the body, maybe by taking testosterone and bulking up and building yourself up, is just cosmetic. It's cosmetic. And your body's always going to be fighting to be in a sex and gender that you were born with. So you're fighting a losing battle against genetics, and genetics will always win. So I want people to understand that. So what we're trying to expose to you, because I don't want people to get so enamored, all right, by trying to find transgenders, we are trying to demystify your world so you understand the reality of your world, because that's why we use transgenders. Is there are fruits, they're the things that you can physically see, because these are people that you see every day, all right? So that's one thing I want you to notice. So let's get back to the subject of what I'm trying to talk about before we get into Emmanuel Macron, who happens to be the president-elect of France in 2017 as of today, which is the 9th of May 2017. So we'll get into it in a minute. But first of all, I just want to show you a few things, all right? Now, let's get to the subject of what we call democracy, all right? And I'm on the wiki page of democracy, all right, right, just to explain what it means. And as you can see, he says democracy comes from the Greek word. I can't pronounce the word because I don't want to. Let me just try a little bit. It says democratia, all right? It means literary rule of the commoners, all right? And if we go down into this web page, you can actually just pause this video at any time and copy out that link, right? So, and paste it on your web page and do your own study as well. Now, let's go further into the web page just to show you some certain things. Western democracy, that's what I want to read, and just follow my mouse. It says Western democracy, right, as distinct from that existed in pre-civilized societies, is generally considered to have originated in city-states such as classical Athens and the Roman Republic. All right? Like I'm always telling you, the Vatican is never too far away from anything. Now, here is something I want to tell you about democracy you probably will never hear in like your history books. And if you don't, even though you read through this web page and you get done with it, you won't understand how democracy came to be. Now, democracy was something that was practiced in like the Greek started, as you can see here, showing you it's from a Greek, it's a Greek word, but it wasn't something that was practiced as it is today. It was just something that was the Greeks just practiced because the Greeks were one people or one ethnic people who wanted to, like they had an affinity for all sorts of things. It's from the word Greek that you have homosexuality. All right, they had an affinity for all sorts of things, but I don't want to go into too much details about who the Greeks were and what they looked like. That's a study on your own that you have to do. I don't want to get into that. Today's not the day for that conversation. We just want to strictly stick to democracy and define it, demystify it, so you really understand what's going on. So now here's the story about democracy. As you can see right here, after I read that web page, it says that Western democracy originated in the city of classical Athens and the Roman Republic. Okay, now so here is the story actually. So during the Reformation, right? The Reformation that started with people like Martin Luther in the 1400s, in which Martin Luther hanged a thesis on the wall claiming that the Pope was not of God, that he did not serve God, which is fact and still remains the fact till today. The Roman Catholic Church system has nothing to do with God. It's just a facade. What they're actually practicing at the very highest ends as you go higher up in the hierarchy is actually what they call Luciferian religion, all right? But I don't want to get into too much details on that. The lay Roman Catholics, the people who go to mass every day and go to confessions and feed on their communion, they don't know that. They think they're actually worshiping God. But the higher up you go in the hierarchy, you find out that it's got nothing to do with God, because you can clearly see that when you go to, except you're very blind, when you can clearly see that because you have all this statues and symbols and praying to the Virgin Mary, which is not biblical at all. None of that, right? The Hail Marys and all that. If you're someone who's actually interested in following God, at the end of the day, you should be aware that this stuff is not biblical, all right? So let's get back into the story. So during the the Reformation started by Martin Luther and a couple of other monks, in which they Martin Luther hanged his thesis on the wall and said that the Pope has got nothing to do with being Christian. Now, there's one Bible I would like you guys to study on your own besides the 1611 King James Bible, which I always recommend, is the Geneva Bible. When you study the Geneva Bible was I think it was created in 1599. It wasn't very public. It was one of those Bibles that the early church reformers, the people who started the Reformation, like Martin Luther, translated the Bible from the Latin tongue, because all Bibles during the Roman Catholic era before the Reformation was read in Latin. That means if, for example, you were an English speaker, or you were a Dutch speaker, or you were a German speaker, when the Bible was being read to you, it was read to you in Latin. The people could understand what it was saying, they would just agree with what the priest said. He could interpret it in any type of way, and people would just accept that. It's still what goes on today around the world in most churches, because you have somebody who's called a pastor. He comes in and he takes a portion of the Bible and he just reads it to you. He explains it to you, and people don't never go back home and actually study on their own. They just accept what's been done or what's been told, and they just go back. Is this all this was? It's Roman Catholic, way of teaching. All right. And so, and a lot of the people that a lot of, to me, I gotta be very, very honest. I'm gonna just say the way I feel. I don't really believe that there are any pastors who really preach the word of God out there. I think to them, it's just, let's say, I would call it just a social gathering, so they can just maybe fill their pockets up with tithes and offerings and all that, which is not even biblical anymore. And then you just pass on silly information with you. And based on the fact that they have a 501c3 tax a deduction that they have to adhere to, they necessarily don't tell you the truth. Otherwise, because the 501c3, which is a tax exempt status that churches have, says that you shouldn't say anything against the government. You shouldn't be really politically inclined. So you can't say anything that's going to affect that status. Otherwise, they're gonna take your 501c3 away from you, and you start paying taxes. So a lot of the people who you think are pastors never tell you the truth. They won't tell you because of that particular 501c3 status. They're just interested in lining their pockets and getting money. So let's get back into the Reformation, because I just got off the line. I was just throwing that in there. So what happened was, during the Reformation, in which Martin Luther started, what happened was a lot of kings and queens during that era, when they were exposed to the word, all right, and exposed to the word in their own native tongue, different from the Latin tongue in which all teachings were being passed on, they started understanding that the Pope, right, was not of God, that he had nothing to do with God. He had nothing to do with Yehoshua, or Joshua in English, as in which is being misinterpreted today as Jesus, all right? He had nothing to do with that he wasn't of God. So this tore up the Roman Catholic kingdom. So a lot of kings and queens, all right, started rebelling against the Roman Catholic hierarchy. And they succeeded from the Roman Catholic Empire, right from, let's say, the old, what they call the Holy Roman Empire, which was led by the Germans way back then, to like the Dutch empires, the French, and also the English. All of those empires decided to succeed from the Pope, all right, and said that they don't want to be part of the Roman Catholic kingdom anymore. So the whole Roman Catholics now, the Roman Catholic hierarchy at the Vatican now had a problem on their hands, because they were losing power. So they started the Counter Reformation. Now the Counter Reformation, in today's simple terms, I would call it the New World Order. So when you hear the term New World Order, it's still part of the Counter Reformation, in which that the Roman Catholic Empire had lost, had lost its power and control over so many kingdoms. So they were fighting to bring back those kingdoms in. All right. So now what happened was, during this particular era in which the kings and queens now succeeded, all right, from the Roman Catholic Empire, the Roman Catholic the Vatican now started thinking, how can we make sure that kings and queens, all right, don't have this kind of power anymore? Because in that time, you have to understand that monarchs ruled till the day they died. So if a monarch succeeded from the Roman Catholic Empire, so for the next 40, 50 years, if he was still alive, that means there was no way the Vatican could get back that country back into its empire again after they succeeded. So the Vatican now thought about what they call democracy. They now thought the only way that you can actually remove kings and queens from their thrones was to make sure that you had the people, all right, get fed up and decide to go against their kings, all right? So they implemented what they call, this is how democracy came into being, and it is being practiced as it is today. Now, the first place that these people practiced democracy was in the French Revolution. That's why it's very important that you study the French Revolution. I keep saying that all the time. We actually have a video in which I lay some small emphasis on the French Revolution. And let me see if I can find the name of the video correctly here so I can actually show it to you. I think it's the Iggy Azalea video, in which I talk about the French Revolution. Let me just make sure that that's the right video. So I'm going to my channel list right now, or video list on our channel, just to see if I've got the name right. It's still loading a little bit. So let me just keep talking. So the French Revolution was the first step in which democracy was being implemented. Now, how did the French Revolution get so successful? Now, what the Vatican did through its proxies and people they own was to make sure that they control the food supply. So when the food supply was shortened, right, and people couldn't get bread or food to eat, that's when the trouble started. They started looking at the king. I think it was King Louis at that point in time, and that's how the French Revolution started. So the people use the Roman Catholic use proxies to instigate the people against their French king, and that's how their French king got killed, and that's how democracy came into being, in which they would say that the commoners would have the right to actually choose who rules over them. All right, so that's how democracy came into being as the way it is being practiced today through the French Revolution. All right, okay, so the video is actually Iggy Azalea, Transgender Transsexual, part 2 is the part 2. You should look for that, in which I talk about the French Revolution a little bit. So that is how democracy came into being. All right, so democracy today is to make sure that anybody, any king and queen who is a rebel, right, to the Roman Catholic Empire cannot last. That's why the Roman Catholic, the Vatican today goes about spreading democracy all around the world. All right. So the only kings and queens who rule, monarchs right now in the world who rule, are people who have given themselves over to the Roman Catholic Empire. So, for example, when you have people like the kings and queens, let's say king and queen in like England, or king and let's say the Saudi Arabian monarchs, or like the United Arab Emirate monarchs ruling, they're all ruling because, right, they're working for the Vatican. They're working under the rulership of the Vatican. So the Vatican uses democracy as a threat to any king and queen who does not submit to its rulership. That's what democracy is for. So now, with that said, now you have to understand that when the United States of America, and we're gonna switch a little bit right now and talk about the United States, because people always say that the United States was is a land of the free. All right, now you have to understand that at the beginning of the United States, the people who actually brought the United States into what it is today were people fleeing away from tyrants, kings and queens that they didn't want to be ruled over, and from the Roman Catholic Empire. But the Roman Catholic Empire hijacked what is called the United States right from inception. This is what people don't understand. So when you hear that, when you hear, for example, we always, I mean, it's in history, it's not what you hear, that the people who established the United States, like the Constitution of the United States, were Freemasons. You have to understand that Freemasons are working under, all right, under the power of the Roman Catholic, or the Vatican itself. They're under direct subjugation to the Roman Catholic hierarchy, the Vatican itself. So with that, I want to switch. Since we given laid a little bit of foundation for democracy, now I want to get into the Electoral College. All right. Now, a lot of times you hear that the Electoral College, all right, decides who is going to be the president of the United States. And I'll just read some few things. On this wiki page, you can pause the video and copy out that, or you can just Google Electoral College, and it will take you one of the search results that will come up will have to do with Wikipedia, and you can read that. You can pause this video and you can read along with me. So let's get into the Electoral College, because I want to show you how the democracy, it's a total scam, especially as it's being practiced in the United States. So I'm going to read something about the Electoral College from this wiki page. It says here, the United States Electoral College is the mechanism established by the United States Constitution for indirect election. What does indirect election mean? Indirect election. Remember the purpose of democracy in the first place, because I had to explain this so people could understand. The purpose of democracy in the first place was that people could elect. That means rule by the commoners. That means commoners, or let's say people who are not monarchs. That's the right way. People who are not monarchs could determine who rules over them. Does it make sense? Now, if that was the true meaning of democracy, why is it that in the United States Electoral College, right, as being defined here by the wiki page, says that is a mechanism established by the United States Constitution for indirect election of the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States? That means they don't want, if democracy in the first place was to give commoners the ability to choose who rules over them, now the Electoral College is working in the opposite direction. It means that you cannot directly, right, choose your president. All right. So why do you think that mechanism is in place? Because the Vatican doesn't want anybody, doesn't want simple people, or people who are not monarchs, or people because they technically look at us as sheep, people who have no understanding. They take a look at people as sheep, or as like simple-minded folk who should have no business choosing who runs over them. Meanwhile, the democracy that they're preaching was supposed to do that in the first place. But now when it comes to the president of the United States and the vice president, they say, no, 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 you cannot have common people, all right, the people directly electing the president, because they don't want you choosing somebody who's going to take their plans overboard. Does it make sense? So I want you to know that. And I'll show you some more of that in a second as we go along. Now, what happens, let me see if I can roll down. I want to show you some certain facts about the Electoral College. Now, it says that each state, now Electoral College, the way it works is like each state now chooses electors. Now, the electors is made up of, so for example, of the number of people in the House of Representatives and the Senate. They combine to make the electors. Now, these electors will choose who is the president. And I want you to remember that very clearly as we read into this page. It says each state chooses electors amounting in number to that state's combined total of senators and representatives. All right, so that means there are a total of 538 electors corresponding to the 435 representatives and 100 senators, plus the 3 electors of the District of Columbia is provided by the 23rd Amendment. Now, this story of elections, because I remember one time I was having a conversation with a lady, and she told me that it was during the Donald Trump election and the Hillary Clinton, and she told me that I should vote, and I told her that I don't vote because my vote doesn't count. And this lady got so upset with me. How would I say such a thing? That United States is a free and democratic nation in which you people have rights. And I told them that the people cannot choose the president of the United States. And she couldn't understand that. So I now asked her if she didn't remember the story between the election that happened between George Bush and Al Gore. And I asked her, who did the people actually choose or like to be president? It was Al Gore. How come President Bush won the election? And she said, she doesn't quite remember. And I told her that's because President Bush won the election through the Electoral College, who decides who becomes president. All right. So with that said, let's go back into this page a little bit more to show you. I want to show you before I get into this really, and show you the lies and the deception that the Vatican has planted in democracy and the United States elections to choose its president and vice president. Now, Alexander Hamilton was one of those founders or Freemasons who laid out the plan for the Electoral College. So I'm going to read what he said. All right. It says here in the wiki page that Alexander Hamilton, in Federalist number 68, laid out what he believed were the key advantages to the Electoral College. The electors come directly from the people and them alone for that purpose. That is a lie. So I want to show you how the founding fathers of America had already sold out this country, all right, to the Vatican. He says that the people choose the what? Electors. But that's not true. The House of Representatives and Senators, right? Remember, I just showed you from this wiki page that the Electoral College is made of people who have been chosen based on the number, right, like of people you have in the House of Representatives and the senators, all right? So he says here that the electors come directly from the people and them alone for that purpose and for that time only, all right? This avoided a party-run legislature or a permanent body that could be influenced by foreign interests from each election. So this is one of the things they were trying to say was like they didn't want people, all right, to be hijacked and taken over such that they would choose the president wrongly. So let me just put it in very simple terms what that means. It means you're stupid and you have no knowledge of how to choose somebody who should run for you, who should be the president of your country. All right? That's just what it means in very simple terms. So let me get back into the main focus of the two things that the Electoral College was supposed to achieve. Now, here is a particular page. You can pause the video and copy out that link and paste it into your web page, and you can read it also and see. But for now, I want to read this from this particular web page that I'm pointing at right now. Now, it says the article is written by a guy called Mark Schulman. I don't know who Mark Schulman is, but he made a very good article which I want to use for this particular video. He says the Electoral College was created for two reasons, all right? The first purpose, all right? The first purpose was to create a buffer between population and the selection of a president, all right? So it was to create like a buffer so that people wouldn't choose the president directly. Now, the second part, as I'm reading here, it says, the second, as part of the structure of the government that gave extra power to the smaller states. That really doesn't matter, all right? Now, based on the first part, this is what we're going to be reading is what it means by saying that the first purpose was to create a buffer between population and the selection of a president, which was his primary aim. It says the first reason that the founders created the Electoral College is hard to understand today. Now, this is Mark Schulman saying that, all right? It's not hard to understand. This was what the Vatican designed it to be, under the guise of using the guys like Alexander Hamilton and those who wrote about the Electoral College. It says the founding fathers were afraid of direct election. Much more, let me just put it right there so you understand as I'm reading. We would say that the Vatican was afraid of direct elections because the founding fathers were Freemasons, and as we all know, Freemasons work directly for the Vatican. There's no mistake about it. The Vatican controls everything. All right. So let's just keep reading. So when you see where it says the founding fathers were afraid of direct election, you should just say the Vatican were afraid of direct election to the presidency. They feared. Now let's continue. The Vatican feared that somebody could manipulate public opinion and come to power. Hamilton wrote in Federalist Papers, all right, it was equally desirable that the immediate election should be made by men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station, right? Let me read that. To the station and acting under circumstances favorable to their deliberation, and to a judicious combination of all the reasons and inducements which were proper to govern their choice. A small number of persons selected by their fellow citizens from the general mass will be most likely to possess the information and discernment requisite to such complicated investigations. In simple terms, it just means that you're a fool, all right? And that this small number of people, this 538 electors or so, could be able to make judgment that's required of them to be able to choose a president for you. That's just what it means. It means you're stupid, and 538 people are much more wiser. All right. It says, I'll continue reading. It says, it was also peculiarly desirable to afford as little opportunity as possible to tumult and disorder. This evil was not least to be dreaded in the election of a magistrate who was to have so important an agency in the administration of the government as the President of the United States. But the precautions which have been so happily concerted in the system under consideration promise an effectual security against this mischief. Now, one of the tricks you have to know about somebody trying to scam you, when people write so much convoluted sentences, because like all the laws, mostly in the United States and around the world, are so convoluted, made of big words, right? Which will be difficult to discern. You have to understand that someone is setting you up for a scam and he's lying to you. So what I've just finished reading here was Hamilton was saying that 538 people, they put it in today's words, would be able to choose the president much more effectively than, all right, let's say the number of people who were in the United States. Now let's take a look at how many people we had during this time in I think the Electoral College was established, I think, in the 1870s. Let me see. It was actually in 1787. The Electoral College was established in 1787. So let's take a look at the population of the United States at that time. Now it says in the first census, the population of the United States was enumerated to be 3,929,214. Now this was the population of the United States in 1787. Now this brings me to a question. I've talked about this before on one of the videos, and the video is actually let me see if I can look that up again. Is let me see the name of the video. Let me see if I can find it. What's the name of the video? The name of the video is Kevin Bacon, Transgender Transsexual Hebrew Israelite Theory. Now, I talked about the fact that there were black people already in the United States as of that time, all right? And that the number of people, all right, that was shipped from Africa, all right, bearing in mind that the population of the most populous nation in Africa, in West Africa, in which the transatlantic slave trade started, just barely hit, about 160 million people. So if you regress back to that time, you had less people living. So now the question, why I just brought this to your attention was because if you had 4 million people, all right, and the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, shipped over closely, let's say about, I think they said 25 million or 20 million people, or more, up to 100 million at that point in time. I want to ask the question, why is this population still this small? If you had 25 million slaves coming down to the United States of America, black folk. I'm just throwing that out there. But that's not the subject of what we're talking about. It's just something that you should take note of. All right. So now what I'm trying to say here, let's get back to what I'm trying to say, is that if the population, if you have let's say close to 4 million people living in the United States as of the time 1787, when the Electoral College was made. And the Electoral College was saying that 538 people, all right, according to the wiki page, based on that number has been increased a bit because maybe the number of House of people in the House of Reps have increased, and the number of people in the Senate has also increased. Now, I want to ask you a very logical question here, because according to Alexander Hamilton, the Electoral College would make sure that the people don't choose a tyrant. I want to ask you a question. How easy is it to you to bribe 538 people to choose a president for you compared to 4 million people? You see how stupid that sounds now? So they're saying that 538 people can choose a president much more better than 4 million people. Now, if for example, someone was able or had the kind of money to bribe, all right, people, how easy would which one would be more easier to bribe? 4 million people, right? Or 538 people? I'm sure you would know that it's much more easier to bribe 538 people to choose the president than, right, 4 million people to choose the president. It would be more difficult in 1787. Now, America's population today, let's say population of the United States today, all right, let's just do that and find out how many people. There are 321 million people living in the United States today. And these 538 people in the Electoral College are the people choosing your president. So the question now is, which one is easier to bribe? If a tyrant is supposed to take over the country, all right, which route would be the easier route for him to go to take over the country, to use? Would he be easier for him to take over 321 million people as compared to 538? I'm sure a tyrant would make this, right? It would be easier for him to take over 538 people. So that is what the Vatican did to be successful under the guise of democracy. So they made sure that the people, right, because they know it would be much more difficult to go through the whole of the United States to be able, all right, to twist their minds to choose a president which they can control. It's much more difficult, but it's much more easier for them to control 538 people who choose the president, to make sure that none of you guys in here can actually choose a president that comes from you. So that means all the president of the United States, in most cases, have always come from the Vatican, who controls the pool. Does it make sense? So that's the breakdown of democracy that I wanted to break down to you guys today, before we get into Emmanuel Macron. So first things first, before we get into Emmanuel Macron, I want to show you, I'm just looking at Emmanuel Macron's webpage here, and I just want to bring something to your attention. So you can pause this video at any time, and actually you can Google Emmanuel Macron, or you can just, when you Google it, the results come up, then you can go to the wiki result and actually look at this. So we're going to read something from Emmanuel Macron's webpage, because when I always tell people that the Vatican runs everything, I want you to, I want to show you facts, because our channel is dedicated to showing you facts when we talk about anything. So if you scroll through Emmanuel Macron's webpage here, as I'm scrolling through, and we go to his early life, I'm going to just read something from his early life and education real quick. He says, Emmanuel Macron was born in Amiens. Emmanuel Jean Michel Frederic Macron is the son of Francois Nogues, a physician, and Jean Michel Macron, professor of neurology at the University of Picardy. He says here that he was raised in a non-religious family. He was baptized a Roman Catholic at his own request at age 12. So you see what I mean? So when I'm talking about that, when I talk about that the Vatican runs everything, I'm not just saying this. I'm not just making words up. I'm showing you with facts. Now, if you read further into his page, he says he was educated mostly at the Jesuit Vatican school, Jesuits, just like Adam Weishaupt was a Jesuit of a professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt. All right, it says here he was educated mostly at the Jesuit Lycée La Providence in Amiens. Right, before his parents sent him to finish his last year of school at the elite Lycée Henri IV in Paris, where he completed the high school curriculum and under the undergraduate program. His parents sent him off to Paris due to the alarm at the bond he had formed with Brigitte Ozier, a married teacher with 3 children at the Jesuites de la Providence, who later became his wife. This is all just, I just wanted to show you so you can see what I'm talking about, right? That even his so-called wife, Brigitte, right, is also a Jesuit, Vatican trained. These are the people running your world. That's just what I wanted to bring to your attention. So before we go any further, all right. So let's go dive deeper into Emmanuel Macron. All right. So let's get into Emmanuel Macron, who happens to be the president-elect of France as of today. All right. Let's get straight into this transvestigation and show you that Emmanuel Macron is not the sex that he actually says he is. Now, one thing that bring how I got into like looking at Emmanuel Macron was Emmanuel Macron actually is married to a lady called Brigitte. Now, Brigitte is 25 years older than Macron. And what I did notice, first of all, was that they're almost of the same height. And Emmanuel Macron's head looked almost as small, almost the same size, if not slightly, very slightly smaller than his wife. So that made me look and say, what sort of man's, because I know that, like I've always said on our channel, if you're trying to compare skulls, you have to make sure that the skulls of the people you compare are skulls of the same ethnicity, same height, and you also have to take into account the weight. You can't compare skulls of different ethnicity because, as I've said earlier on my videos, is that the skulls of black people are much denser and heavier, all right, than the skulls of other people from different ethnicities. So that's why you can mix and match the skulls, except they are of the same ethnicity, all right, when you're comparing skulls. So you compare skulls of the same ethnicity, of the same height, and you also have to take account of the weight. Now, so what I did notice was Emmanuel Macron had the same head. His head was the same with that of his wife. I'll show his wife later, but we're gonna start transvestigation here. Now, what I want you to notice is how Emmanuel Macron crosses his legs here. All right, see that? Now, people don't know that females cross their legs at their thighs, and males cross their legs at their calves. So if a man crosses his leg, he's going to cross one calf to the other leg, and he's going to cover up his knee pads, all right? When a female crosses a leg, it's going to show more thigh. Now, why is that? So I'm going to break it down in very simple terms so you can understand why the crossing of the leg happens that way, all right? Now, the reason why that happens is because with a female has a wide pubic arch, which is 120 degrees or more, all right? The wide pubic arch is wide so that a woman can give birth, so a child can come out of the womb. Let me see if I can pull a picture up from a document so you can actually see that better. So here is the document, all right? I just pulled up. So as you can see, this wide pubic arch here, right, is 120 degrees, right? So that's why a baby's head can come out of the womb, as you can see from this picture, from this particular picture right here, 120 degrees wide. With men, this pubic arch is 90 degrees, so a baby would not be able to come out of that womb. So this is how a baby comes out of the womb. This wide pubic arch enables a woman to be able to spread her legs and have sex. in laying down, and men can do that. Does it make sense? So now let's go back to what I was trying to show you from that particular picture I had. So this wide pubic arch here, all right, because the pubic arch is wide, okay? So because the pubic arch is wide, it pulls the pelvis further apart. So because the pelvis is further apart, the legs of a female are further apart. So because of that further apart, remember I talked about the Q angle, right? The Q angle is more acute. That means the angle from the knee to the hip is much more acute than that of a male. So because of this Q angle, this acute Q angle, it makes a female to be able to cross her legs more, right? Does it understand? So the thigh here can cross over the thigh here because of this wide Q angle, all right? Does it make sense? Because of this acute Q angle and wide pubic arch. So it's more like the cross is much more acute when a lady crossing her legs because of the Q angle and her wide pubic arch. Males have very narrow, right, pubic arches, so they can't cross their leg much as a female should. So when a man crosses his leg because of his less acute Q angle, he's going to cross it more at the knee. So I'm going to show you some more pictures to make you see what I'm saying. So let's pull a picture of, this is Emmanuel Macron, and I want you to take note of how he crosses his legs, right? And let me pull up another picture of a woman crossing her legs. Now, I want you to see the similarity. See what's happening here? You see there's more kneecap revealing. See that? There is more kneecap on this female. See how the thighs cross? Because the pubic arch pulls the legs further apart, so it crosses more. The legs cross more. And as you can see, that's why Emmanuel Macron's thigh are showing. All right? Because his pubic arch is wider, so he crosses his leg more, just in the same like this female. Now I'm going to pull another picture of a man that Emmanuel Macron went to see. I don't know who he is, but it's still from the same photograph. And I want you to take notice of this. See, this is a man crossing his legs. Let me try to pull these pictures a little bit more so you can see more. All right, now here is a man crossing his legs. As you can see, you don't see the kneecap of the man. Why? Because men cross their legs at their calves. So the man's calf, right, the calf is the leg, is the muscle just below the knee. All right, the man's calves would touch his other leg, right, at the knee. This is how a man crosses his leg, and you see less thigh. All right, when a female crosses her legs like Emmanuel Macron or here, right, you see more thigh. So you can see this picture. You can see that this picture is much more closer in resemblance to this one than this one, because this female is crossing her legs at her thighs. See how the thighs here cross and the kneecap is showing? And the same thing that's happening here with Emmanuel Macron. See, his kneecap is showing. You see more thigh. And with this man, you see less thigh. You don't see kneecap here, but his legs cross over that kneecap, because this is male, this is female, right? See the leg comparisons right there? All right, so let's move forward with another picture. All right, so you will see more of this. Let's go further. We already showed you that. That's still Emmanuel Macron, and I want you to take a look at the small hands. I already showed you in the first picture when we started talking about it on the Yahoo page, but I just want you to take a good look at that. Small hands is always the indication that it's a female, because if you cut his hands right here at his wrist and pull it over his face, it's going to feel 3/4 of his face. That's what usually happens with males and females. The hands are comparable to the face. If you cut your hands, if you're a man, and you pull it inside your face, it's going to fill up your whole entire face and leave little or nothing less. If you're a female and you pull that, you'll align your hands from your chin, all right? From your chin to your wrist. You will see that it fills 3/4 of your face and leave some space out. That's always the way it is. Hands in relation to the face based on male and female. All right, let's go further, some other pictures. And here's Emmanuel Macron with Brigitte. Now remember the thing I told you about the skull comparisons. You can see right here, all right, that this female is wearing heels, which means that she's very, very short. And this guy over here, all right, is wearing what? Flats. So here's a short lady, all right, and here's a tall one. But you can see the skull comparisons right here. Let's say they're both, she's slightly leaner than him. Let's just say that. But on the skull comparison level right here, if he was male, his head should be far more bigger than that of his wife, which is 25 years older than him. I got nothing about, I got nothing, I have nothing against females who are older than men. It's just society has made it in such a way that females actually think that the man or their spouse should be older than them. It's never the case. It's just an age. As long as you're an adult, it doesn't really matter. All right. I'm just saying that just for the fact that I'm trying to make comparisons of the skulls right here. So if he was male, all right, his head should be considerably larger than that of his wife. But as you can see, even the neck is so small because that's the neck of the female. Take a look at the shoulders too. It's way too short. Take a look at the hands. If I draw a line from Emmanuel Crutch's hands right here, right, from his crutch down to the arms of his hands, you will see that line ends inside the palms of his hands. Always clear indication that you're looking at a female. Now, if it's your first time on the channel, I'm going to show you what I mean exactly. Let me just pull up one of our documents right here so you can see what I'm talking about. And here is it, all right? Where is it? Okay, here is the picture. Now here is a female right here. If I draw a line from this female's crotch down in the palms of her hands, down to her arms, that line goes inside the palms of her wrist. Clear indication of a female. If I do that for this other female right here too, I draw a line from her crotch down to her arms. It ends inside the palms of her wrist. Clear indication that she's female. And so the same thing with Emmanuel Macron here, all right? Draw that line from this crutch. Go right, go left. It will end inside the palms of his wrist. The arms are too short for it to be a man. A man has longer arms in relation to the body. And as you can see, he still has a cute angle going on here, but we'll show you more of that as we go along, okay? Let's go to the next picture. And here's Emmanuel Macron with the former president, the outgoing president of France. And what I wanted to bring to your attention is the jawline. Now, a lot of people, you might see females with a jawline that looks like it's square. That's because you're looking at it from, let's say, the frontal view, all right? If you look at it from the side view, a female's jawline will always start sloping directly from her ears. It won't drop down straight. So the jawline is going to be shaped like a C, while a man's own is always going to be shaped like an L. As you can see here, Emmanuel Macron's jawline, right, slopes way too suddenly from his ears. It's not going down straight as it should be for a man. Let me show you from a document so you'll see that a little bit more clearly. Let me go up the document right to the start of the page. And let me show you what I mean. So from the side, all right, from the side, the jawline is always going to drop a little bit more from the ears down before it goes into the chin, all right? For a female, it starts sloping already, right? See that? It just starts turning. For a man, you can see it's dropping, right? For this, it starts turning. Okay, well, something wrong with my mouse. Sorry. It starts turning because this is female. So if we compare that, all right, to Emmanuel Macron, you can see that it's turning into a C already. It's not dropping down into an L shape. It's comparable to that of the female on his right, the outgoing president of France, Le Pen, right here. See how the jawlines are similar? Because these are two females. All right. All right. Let's go further. Some other pictures. And here is a picture of Emmanuel Macron from his Instagram page. And he should never have taken this picture because I'm going to blow it up as much as I can. As you can see right there, can you see that hourglass figure from the back? Can you see that? Can you see how wide and how that figure of the hips is shaping out right there? See that? See that hourglass figure? You're following my mouse? You see that? See that hourglass figure? That's not the thighs of a man. Those are not the legs of a man. It should be straight. The Q angle shouldn't be this acute, but you can see that it's flowing, right? It's flowing. Hips, because he's got hips. Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron is female. That's why he has that hourglass figure right there from behind. I bet you never thought that nobody would be taking a look at this picture from behind like the way I am. So he's going to be shocked. Well, he's not going to be shocked. She's going to be shocked. Let me put it right. She is a she. All right. So let's go further. Some other pictures. Here's Emmanuel Macron with the vice chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, I believe. But what do you guys notice about this? The arms are waist too short. All right. If you're a man and you did this and you cross your arms this way, it would drop below to your crotch. It wouldn't be this high. And see where how the length of the shoulders are? The length of the shoulders down here, it's way too short. It's similar to that of the female over here. The length of the arms. If I draw a line from these elbows right here across, see that? Follow me? You would see it crosses right into the other female on the right, because there are two females. If he was male, right, these shoulders would drop much more longer around here. It would be somewhere around that. See that? Okay, because this is female, right? The length of that shoulders right here, where it bends right here, see, it's right there, is comparable to that of the female here, because these are two females. All right. And even with the head comparisons, his head is actually smaller. Now, they are of the same height. This woman just has a little bit of more fat. If she was the same weight with him, you would see that the head comparisons would be the same, meaning that you're looking at two females, right? Another picture. Now, here's another picture of him sitting. As you can still see, the skew angle is still too acute. See that? The hips are still there, all right? And he's crossing those legs at his thighs, all right? Okay, some more pictures again. And here is the one that really came to my attention. Now, can you see that he's spreading? Now, here's Emmanuel Macron, because they say he supports the LGBT community. And they call this, he was coming out, all right? But as you can see right here, he has hips. Can you see that? The female indentation above the navel? And you can see the position of the navel. It's way inside the torso too much. Now, a man's belly button is going to hang lower. It's going to be hanging lower to the waist. It's going to be somewhere around where you have my mouse resting right here. This is way too high. And as you can see, he's spreading. Can you see that? And one of the tricks of the trade, people don't know this. When female to male transgenders are trying to hide their hips, what they do is put their hands inside their pocket. As you can see here with Emmanuel Macron, he's trying to hide the hips so you don't see it. So he puts his hands inside the pocket. But you can see he's still spreading. Can you see that? Hourglass figure. The navel is way too high in the belly. It's not low. And he has what I call the curves of the pecs. Now, what do I call the curves of the pecs? I'm going to pull up some more pictures so I can explain this more. So bear with me for a second. So I've pulled up some pics, so let me show you what I mean by the curves of the pecs. Now, I'm sorry if this picture is too graphic, but I just have to show you. Now, a female, no matter what a female does, no matter how much testosterone she takes, all right, and bulks up like the female that you're looking at my picture right now, females will always have what I call the curves of the pecs. The pec muscles of a female are not designed to have mass and be heavy like a man's chest, because they're designed to carry mammary glands, tissue, and breast, as you can see from this page. Can you see how flat these pec muscles are? This female is really bulked up, but can you see how the upper pec muscles are flattened out? It's the same thing that Emmanuel Macron has over here. He has a flat, underdeveloped pec muscles because it's female. Those pec muscles are not designed to be carrying, to have mass. They're designed to carry breast tissue. and milk. Now let me show you the difference between the pec muscles of a female and the pec muscles of a dude. Now here is Dexter Jackson. He's one of my favorite bodybuilders, all right? As you can see, those upper pec muscles are very, very developed. Now, both of them are on testosterone because in bodybuilding is what you have to do to have mass. And as you can see, he has very upper developed pec muscles because he's male. And this female here, with all the testosterone she's taking, the pec muscles, upper pec muscles, are not developed because it's female. Women are not designed to have that. And it's the same thing that Emmanuel Macron has over here. All right. So let me show you an example of another female. Look at this, another female right here who's still a bodybuilder. As you can see, those pec muscles, upper pec muscles, are still flat. But because the breasts are designed to have mammary tissue, right, not to be developed and massive like that of a man here in Dexter Jackson. I'll show you another female and see that here's another female still, all right? See that? The pec muscles are underdeveloped because they're designed to carry breast tissue, all right, and not be massive like a man. And this is what Emmanuel Macron has over here, underdeveloped pec muscles of a female. And look at the hourglass figure, right? Look at that hourglass figure as he's spreading, right? He's got hips, he's got curves, and he has the female indentation above the navel. That's where his waist at. And see that navel right there. It's deep inside the torso of the body. It's not low as it should be for a man, which it should be around here, because this is a female. This is no dude, all right? Some more pictures. And here's Emmanuel Macron again. As you can see, he still has that Q angle, right? And he has hips. Can you see how acute the Q angle is? Because the Q angle of a female would be much more acute than that of a male. All right? Okay. Some more pictures again. And here's Emmanuel Macron. Still the length of the arm. See how short it is? See? He has this crutch. Draw a line from that crutch down to his arms, and you can see it ends inside the palms of his wrist because he's male. And see how short the shoulders are, right? They're not broad enough. And here's him with John Kerry. If John Kerry can tell you that this man is a tranny, is a transgender, how can you be sure that John Kerry can tell you anything that's true? That's why you can have no role models in politics, in media. Once you see anybody on TV, like I usually say, you can't trust them. Because the Vatican owns all forms of media. Everything you see on TV is owned by the Vatican. In one of their 25-point plan to rule the world was to make sure that they owned all media. If you want to watch know a lot about what I'm just talking about, you come to our channel and you look for the video called let me see again what's the name of the video. Serena Williams video on our channel. I explain about a 25-point plan in which the Vatican designed under the guise of the Illuminati, using Adam Weishaupt, who was a trained Jesuit priest, a professor of canon law in the University of Ingolstadt. He was a Jesuit. He was Vatican. They used him to infiltrate all Freemasonry so they could usurp all kings. All right, that 25-point plan, which the Adam Weishaupt told them that they would have to use to run the world again, to counter the Reformation that had happened. It made sure that they would use all media. They would have to own all media in whatever form or format, whether it be the printing press, the internet, all right, or TV, radio, whatever that's media, books, educational system, that they had to own it all if they wanted to win the Counter-Reformation and get back the Roman Catholic Empire into its former glory. All right, so that's the video that you would need to watch to see that. Okay, so let's get back to Emmanuel Macron again. Another picture of Emmanuel Macron. And what do I want you to notice here? The small neck. That neck is not wide enough. All right. Okay. There's no distinguishable also male brow ridge. All right. And this is what I'm saying. This is one of the few examples I can show you. When you look at the face from the front like this, especially if it's female, you would see that the face of Emmanuel Macron is quite oval. It's not square enough. All right. It's oval. Oval, see the way it's slanting inside. All right. It's not square enough to be a man's face. All right. Some more pictures. Here's Emmanuel Macron again with his wife Brigitte, and you can still see the Q angle. It's way too acute. That's the Q angle of a female, the way it stands. Look at the stance. And if you draw a line, that's the crutch right there. Like I said, to the right or to the left, it ends inside the palms of his hand, clear indication of a female. And look at how acute that Q angle is when he's standing. See that? That's how a female stands. That's not a man stands at all. All right? He's been fooling. Well, I have a commentator on a channel who said that he's not surprised by all of that. That he technically believes that almost everybody in France, especially France, is transgendered. I don't know how true that is. If that commentator is watching this video, I would just advise him to send me a message and we can talk about this. But here is Emmanuel Macron, and as you can see, the head is the same as the head of his wife, who's actually shorter than him because she's wearing heels, because this is two females. They've been lying to you, telling you that Emmanuel Macron is male. No, he's not. He's a woman. All right. Some more pictures again. And here's Emmanuel Macron. He has an arch in his back. Can you see that? Even through clothes, you can still see the arch in the back. The arch in the back of a female. All right. The arch is necessary for support, so the child, so that the female can carry the weight of pregnancy and carry the weight of children. All right. If it's your first time on a channel, I have to show you that from a page again from this particular book, which I advise that you should download and study. Let me just scroll down into the page a bit, and here we are. And you can see a female always has an arch in the back. Here is a female and here is a male. Female always has to have an arch in the back. The arch starts below the shoulder blade to start dipping in, all right? When it gets into the navel, it starts coming out into the pelvis, all right? The female's always arch, back is always going to arch. It's going to be in the shape of a C or an S, depending on where you draw it. A man's back never arches. It's going to be straight. If a man's back is going to arch, it's going to be shaped like a D, as you can see here. It's going to arch outwards. A female's back arches inwards. A man's back arches outward like a D or a P, and then goes straight into the pelvis. It doesn't matter how the female looks, all right? She always will have an arch in her back, all right? Let me show you that from our web page again. Let me scroll down a bit. My picture is loading a little bit slowly, so give me a second. So when a female bends, all right, you're going to see that arch in the back. So a female's back is always going to bend or arch more because it's female, all right? It doesn't matter what the female looks like. If she's small or she's big, there's always going to be an arch in a female's back, all right? Here's a small lady on the right. You can still see there's an arch in that back shaped like a C or an S, depending on where you draw it. A big lady to the left, you can still see the arch in her back, all right? Doesn't matter if she's got muscles or not. Here's a muscular female. There's always going to be an arch in that back, right? Always. Muscular female, arch in the back. And that's what Emmanuel Macron here has, an arch in his back, even through his suit. You can still see that arch right there. That's the arch of a female, all right? Let's go further. You can still see that arch right there. Doesn't matter what clothes you wear, male or female, we'll still see that arch. You can still see that arch in the back, all right? And look at him with Brigitte Nielsen. You can still see the hourglass figure. Can you see that? And how acute that Q angle is? See the angle here? If this was a man, it wouldn't be this acute. It would be much more straight. But he's in shorts, and you can see the Q angle right there. I wouldn't even want to talk about the knees as well. This is the knees of a female, because remember, females have more developed quadriceps muscles than their hamstrings. Why are the quadriceps muscles more developed than the hamstrings? Because there is a wide pubic arch, and because of the wide pubic arch, the Q angle is more acute. So in order to support that Q angle and the weight of the arch on the weight of the pelvis, all right, the upper muscles here are much more developed. Because the upper muscles here are much more developed than the legs, they cover the kneecap up. So you see less kneecap for a female. If it was male, you would see a lot of this kneecap. I'll show you another picture so you can clearly see that. All right. Here's Emmanuel Macron again. As you can see, the Q angle is way too acute. That's the Q angle of a woman. And see how short the torso is? I'm not saying men can have short torsos, but this is in relation to the Q angle right here. Acute Q angle. See that? See that acute Q angle? That's the Q angle of a female. All right? Right? See how short the shoulders are and how he's trying to raise his hand and how short the hands are. See how small those hands are. Those are the hands of a female. A man's hands would be larger in comparison to his face. All right? Okay. Uh, Still showing you the short arms here again. Short arms in relation to the crutch. Draw a line from this crutch. It ends inside the palms of his hands. Go to his left. Go to his right. Ends inside the palms of his hand. Short arms. All right. Okay. And here's the picture I wanted to show you again, so you can see. See how those knees are? The knees are not protruding enough. All right. See, these knees are comparable to the female on the left, his wife. All right. Can you see that? Because if he was female, he would have, if he was male, he would have more of this kneecap showing, which is always a clear indication of a woman. Let me just show you a couple of pictures from our channel so you can see what I'm talking about. So let me pull up the picture. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Right, and here we go. All right, let me pull this to the side and increase that a little bit more so you can see that. You see he has less kneecap showing because those are the knees of a woman. All right, as you can see, there's a woman to my right, and because of that upper thigh development that I told you guys about, because of the Q angle in which the upper thigh is more developed to support the Q angle of a female, because of the wide pubic arch that a female has, which covers up, because the upper thigh is more developed than the hamstrings behind the quadriceps of the upper thigh. It covers up more of the kneecap and gives it a smoother line, as you can see right here. So these are the knees of a woman. All right. And that is what it's comparable to the ease of Emmanuel Macron over here. See that? Smooth, not showing, less kneecap showing. All right, less kneecap showing, because these knees are the knees of a female, not the knees of a man. All right. Some more pictures. I think we come. Is that the last picture? Let me see if I can see the next picture right here. And that's actually the last picture that we have on Emmanuel Macron. The new president-elect of France is actually a transgender. So with that, I hope that you got something, and I want you to subscribe and stay tuned. And I leave you with these words, as I usually say: look with your eyes, but see with your brain. Thanks, and bye-bye.